Hey guys, it's Brandon. Thought I'd have a 15-minute game here today. And I'm playing Chess D Hamaka from Bangladesh. So, let's see what happens here. I've got a Sicilian so far. Let's see what my opponent decides to go with. Maybe D4, open Sicilian. Knight C3 could be a closed Sicilian. My opponent's spending some time here. I'm not sure why. We're not so far into the game here. Okay, so we get an open Sicilian. And I could choose to play like a Taimanov, or we'll go with the Khan. Something I know at least a little bit. Not that well, but at least I know it. So possibilities for white here include, okay, knight c3. Another possibility was c4. The one thing about the Khan is that it's more flexible and there's less theory to know than stuff like the Najdorf, where black plays 2 d6 and a6, and because with the knight coming to f6 early, white is usually forced to play knight to c3 to defend this pawn. And in the Khan, the knight doesn't have to come to c3 right away because I can't get my knight onto f6 without my queen first coming here to c7, because having played e6 on the second move instead of d6, if I play my knight out to e6, f6 too early, this pawn can just push forward to e5 and chase it away. So that's why the queen comes out to stop this e5 push. So anyway, the result of all that is that white can play c4 and then knight to c3, creating pawns on e4, c4, and this Maroczy bind type of position, where black is sort of forced to play into a hedgehog sort of setup with pawns on d6, b6, bishop b7, knight d7, this sort of thing. So with bishop e2 having been played, white will usually play f4, and f4, and now I need to play d6 to prevent or to slow down e5. And oftentimes this bishop will come on to f3, trying to fight for this diagonal, which black usually controls in most variations of the Khan Sicilian, like where the bishop comes to d3, black usually plays b5 and bishop b7. With the bishop on f3, black has to be slightly careful because of tactics on this diagonal. But I think I can play b5 here. I'm not 100% sure about the theory, but the idea is to play bishop b7, of course, and take control of the long diagonal. So white's plan for some kind of advantage in this position is usually to play for either f5 or e5 and try to attack on the king side. And black will try to play bishop e7, knight to c7. Oh, I guess he's just playing a safety move. Knight to c7, rook c8, typical Sicilian stuff, and try to get some pressure on the queen side and using the c-file. So other options, I suppose, for white could be to push things like g4 or h3, g4. Yeah, I guess he just wants to challenge my my bishop and also guard the e-pawn. So knight c7 basically concludes my development, and now we just sort of have a game to play from here. Rook c8 is probably a fine move for me. I could try to think about d5 in certain positions, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me here. I could start to think about moves like knight to c5. Yeah, which which will put pressure on the e-pawn. And how will he defend his e-pawn? Queen d3? Or just move the bishop back? Is it too early for me to play knight c5? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about knight c5. Knight c5, you can move the bishop back, or move queen d3. I think I'll just play a normal standard Sicilian move and just see what happens. Black usually has pressure on this knight, which limits this b-pawn, which means there can be, in theory, some tactics after like the e-pawn, if the e-pawn ever pushes with, and this rook is out of the way, with bishop takes on a3, and then if pawn takes, then queen takes knight. But that's, of course, a long way off. I could also do maybe some other typical Sicilian kind of moves. Okay, so now the rook has moved, so I may have some tactics. At some point, I may have tactics with bishop takes here and then queen takes here, if he ever gets in a move like e5, or I could consider something like queen to a. Queen to a6 with the idea of rook takes knight and then grabbing this pawn on e4. It's a typical exchange sack in the Sicilian. Or I could think about knight to b6 and then knight to c4, hitting the bishop and this pawn, which would force the move bishop to c2, unless he just wants to give up his dark squared bishop. Difficult. Can I start to think about playing d5 here? d5, he probably plays e5. And then my knight isn't really looking so hot because after, let's see, bishop takes, queen takes, where's this knight really going? I could consider knight to c6, or knight to c5, just to put some pressure on the pawn and see how he wants to defend. Again, queen to a6 is jumping into my mind. I could get a lot of play on the queen side with this exchange sack. I just don't know. I'm going to put my knight here, and let's just see how he defends the pawn. We'll see how he chooses to defend. So, I think he has to move the bishop out of the way because there's not really anything else. He still doesn't have enough coverage to play e5 here. Yep, bishop goes back. Okay. So the queen is now covering the pawn. I'll just drop this knight back. And maybe I can start to work on some of these tactics on a3. Or actually go knight. Now actually maybe I can go knight to b6 to c4 and threaten these tactics. Wow. He really decided to try to push here. I can play knight. I can play knight. No. I guess he wants to play g4. Not sure I have a good way to meet that, except if I cleared e7 for my knight. d7 for my knight, yeah. So I'm expecting the move g4 here, and then I'll play knight to d7. And try to defend the oncoming attack. So defense is not my strong suit, so there's a good chance that I will not pull off any defense against any attack. Yep. Now, if need be, I can try to move this rook and get either my bishop or my knight to f8 to try and defend either the h7 or g7 squares, depending on where he comes. I could try to play a central break like e5. If I play e5, he probably goes knight f5, so that doesn't really work for me. In fact, he may play knight f5 here. Alright, so what about knight to c4 here? Attacking the bishop, if the bishop and the pawn on b2, and if the bishop goes to b1 to defend c1 to defend the pawn on b2, I can play knight takes a3. B takes a3, queen takes c3. Alright? Seems logical. He has to... Yeah, but now I can play this tactic. And I don't think he has any, like, desperado moves to get the knight somewhere. If he plays knight takes b5, then I have knight takes b5. So I think I'm winning a pawn here. Now it's just going to be a question of whether or not I can defend the attack, which will inevitably come on the king side. Maybe I could start to think about something like g6 here. The idea of moving the rook, getting the bishop onto the dark squares, and so he's just coming with f5 here. And I think in response I will play e5, force the knight back. Again, knight takes b5 is met with knight takes b5. I'd love to be able to blockade here, but f6, g6, too many sacrifices. Alright, so the knight is off here. I can still keep this knight on a5 or on a3 or bring it back into the game via c5, where it's got a nice home. I think I'll just get the knight back into the game. So I may have to watch out for some move like f6. F6 could be a dangerous idea for me. If you were to say move the bishop out of the way. But okay, I'm up a pawn, so I need to just think about getting my king side safe. Okay, he's really going for it here. So do I have any counterplay with d5? Okay, g6 takes. If I play a5, play h5, bishop takes h5, g6, f6, bishop. I'm not sure what defensive strategy I should be going for here. I'm going to get my rook out of the way, actually. At some point I may be able to drop back, use his pawn as sort of protection for my king. Yeah, he's really pushing. If I play queen d8, he probably plays g6. I just don't think he's got the, I don't know. f6, g6. Let's see, f6 takes, knight takes is fine. f6, push, and then h6. What about that? Okay, what if I play f6? If he pushes, then I play h6 and block up the king side completely. If he takes, I can play bishop takes. Or knight takes. If he plays g6, f6 takes, h6. I don't want f6. I think f6 is the move that I'm most concerned about. So I'm going to put a pawn on f6. And if he plays g6, he probably won't. He'll probably take. But if he plays g6, then I'll just play h6 and hope that I can hold off any sacrifices coming in on the h6 square with moves like bishop takes h6. But okay, defense is not my strong suit here, and there is a very good chance that any attack that he comes up with here could be very devastating. for me. Well, what about if I take his pawn here and then just play king h8? Can I hold a position like that? Probably. His king is unsafe as well. Alright, so this bishop on e6 is pretty dumb. And I do have to watch out for the g7 square. So at least this clarifies my defensive task, in the sense that the real only route into my king here is the g file. And if I can keep the g file covered, I should be okay. I'm not 100% sure about that, but theoretically, I should be okay. I don't want to start trading rooks because rook takes, and then if I trade another rook, he can easily play rook takes, and then queen check, and then queen coming down to d7. So I think it's time for me to start clearing away for my queen to guard the g7 square laterally. And I think I'll start that with moving the knight. Where? Knight to... Got to watch my time a little bit. Alright. We'll play this. Just, my idea is to try to trade the knights, or take the pawn on e4, at least keep pressure on the pawn on e4, and, oh boy, I better watch my time. If he takes the knight with his knight, probably pawn takes, but that opens the d file, but that's okay. Gives my bishop a square on d6. Oh. If he plays, yeah, this move, I was thinking bishop f8 here. Rook trade. The king moves back to g, and he's got no check. With after rook takes, king takes rook. King takes rook, then queen check, king goes back, but I could also just put my queen on the back rank. But I like the fact that the bishop is covering g7 here, and I really don't have time. Really need to speed up here. I just need to watch this g7 square. Now I've got my queen and my bishop covering it. Okay, so he took that knight off. I still have this knight here on c5, and I'm not sure. It doesn't really seem to have a future on that square because the bishop is very nicely keeping it out of all of these dark squares in his position. So to sum up the situation, I'm up a pawn. My opponent does have a slight attack. Maybe I should get... I'm not quite sure what the idea of this move is, but I'm going to bring this knight back just to put pressure on e4. I do also have to sort of watch out for my f6 pawn. Something like queen h4, queen e7 should be okay. Okay, let's see what he's got in mind here. Now things can actually maybe start to get a little bit dangerous for his king. After knight takes, attacking the queen and the knight, he has to take, then check, king goes, I don't know. Could be dangerous for his king. Yeah, he just decides, alright, I just want to get out of any checks here, and I'm coming level on time. So the situation is, yeah, he's attacking the pawn, saw that coming, so I will defend it. And maybe I can think about moves like b4. If he plays knight to b5, knight to d5, I may have to take it. I think I may have to move this pawn because if he pins the knight, if he comes in with the bishop here and pins my knight, then I need to play this to keep protection here on the g7 points and protect the knight. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, alright, if he does take this knight, then I still am protecting the f pawn here. I can also grab the f pawn with my bishop. Now, I think. I don't really see a threat. Let's say if I grab the f pawn, he takes the knight, I take. Doesn't have queen g7 check. So I'm 2 pawns up, but let's see if he can mate me here. So maybe we're just both playing for time a little bit here. Let's get out of this pin and still protect the pawn. Let's chase this bishop. Oh no, I just got mated. Ah, that is so annoying. How did I do that? Just bishop takes. Oh my goodness. Ugh, that is ridiculous. He had absolutely no attack there, and I was just pre-moving. I should have just played bishop takes. My goodness. What was I thinking? Well, I wasn't thinking because I was pre-moving. So, right here, just bishop takes, bishop. Game over. He has no checks, nothing. Just, completely one game. Just blundered away in time pressure. Well, that happens. So, let me just take a look with an engine, and I'll pause the video and take a look with the engine and see what happens, what the engine has to say. Alright, so looking with the engine now. I guess I'll just throw it on here. Let's see what happens. Okay, he's coming with g4. I guess this is the most interesting part. Computer likes knight to d7. Okay, and he played bishop here. Rook f to e8. I played knight to c4, and it's giving a pretty healthy advantage to black. Bishop back. Yep. But okay, knight takes a3. So the computer, I spotted that. He played f5, and now e5. And it wants to just play f6, but he played knight back. And what did I do? I brought my knight back to c4, so that's good. And he went ahead with h4. The computer actually liked f7, f6 here, or it suggested that at first, which I was thinking about, I think, somewhere around here. Yeah, I played it anyway. Here, f6, g takes. No, he played h6. And it wants to play fg, and I played gh. Now it's giving me not so much of an advantage. Roughly equal. Now it's liking white, actually, so maybe it doesn't like the way I played this defense. So I'll have to take a closer look at it. It's saying like half a point for white. So I played king h8. It liked bishop h5 there for some reason. So now it's going back to even. Okay, rooks come off. I didn't want to trade. Okay, I just wanted this. Okay, now it's saying black is fine. Knight to c5. D takes c5, so that was the correct recapture. Bishop here. Now it's back in black's favor, and king gets off the file. Still in black's favor. It's just saying that white really has no attack. Queen e7. Yeah, I should have played queen f7. Knight takes f5. Did I miss a tactic? Oh, I did. Knight takes f5. E takes f5. Bishop takes check. So that was a blunder that I didn't pick up on that tactic. Yeah, I played this. Bishop h5. Yep. Okay, I took the pawn, so this is still much better for me. And there's just no attack here for black. He's just moving around trying to find something. And okay, this just bishop takes c5. plus 5 points advantage for black. Ugh. This is just ridiculous to lose a game like that. But okay, it's time pressure and it happens. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that game, and we'll see you next time.